Hello, my friends. Katie Day with the Move Me to Texas team here with another episode of the Real Advice podcast. I am excited for this week's guest. She's been a realtor since 2014 and a broker since 2018. Prior to real estate, she was in medical sales, crushed it, and then moved into the real estate world. Not only is she an awesome realtor, she's a broker, a team leader, a wife, a mother, and a business coach. So I know there's going to be a ton to unpack today. So get your notepads ready. Please join me in welcoming my friend Alicia Soekawa. What's up? How are you?
Oh, I'm glad you put my middle name in there. My mom would love that. I'm good.
What's going on? How are you?
We're well. We're really well. We're growing. Always navigating, as you know, as a mom and doing all the things to be everything to everyone as best I can. But
For
most of
sure.
all, showing up for myself. That's what I'm doing more this year.
Well,
So
let's kind of dig into that. Let's just like hop right in. I remember one of the first things I ever heard you talk about was time management, right? And I mean everyone's heard it, right? But it's like the entire like putting in the big rocks in your day and how there's always time for more things and stuff like that. But like you of all people like must follow that to a T of time blocking because you are a mother, you're a wife, you have dogs, you have a team, you have a brokerage, like you've got a lot going on. So how do you manage and time block on a day to day?
I think there's things that are not movable for me. So I have non-negotiables. And I think that's the first thing is to put your non-negotiables. We meet as a family. We put our non-negotiables on there, and then everything kind of fills in the spaces besides that. So there's certain non-negotiables, even with the brokerage or with my coaching. So my coaching clients are blocked out every week. I'm not the coach that's like showing up, forgetting about a call or forgetting who's there. I've
Yeah.
heard those horror stories. And also, like, if there are plans, I mean, life changes, life happens, you get sick, you have to travel, then I'm, really good about looking ahead. And Tom very loves this saying about like future pacing. And that's like,
Yeah.
I think our whole life and business is about future pacing, but not living in the future. I guess that's the best way to say it, like being present where you are. But I think for me, what I have seen people struggle with is that they don't know how to say no.
Yeah,
And when you're
for sure.
always saying yes, when you're saying yes, this is like the biggest lesson. When you say yes to something else, you're saying no to something because
Yeah.
you cannot say yes to all of it. And so what I learned early on is when I said yes to the buyer that called me last second and wanted to see something, or a last second this, got a minute, I was saying no to my children for
Yep.
dinner, or saying, no, I can't come to your practice, or no, I can't. And I realized little by little, it kind of erodes really, like it kind of happens like, oh, here, give me a
Yeah.
minute. And all of a sudden your workout's gone, right? All of a
Yeah.
sudden the things that you've promised yourself are not done. So I think that's the first thing. And when I block those out, I physically put them in red a lot of times, or I color code my stuff because it's just physically for me, like able to see on my
Yeah.
calendar what's
See what
happening.
that is for. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I take an intention every week on Sunday. I prep for the week. I do like take 30 minutes to look at what's going on in the week, what's important, what needs to be moved around, have conversations with family members to say, "Hey, what's going on with you?" Because I have a teenager who doesn't tell me things until
The
like,
day
I'm like,
of.
"Well, by the way, I have a check meet." "What? What?" So, I try to leave movable moments and asking him ahead of time. Now I know, "Do you have a track meet this week?" Because he's not gonna tell me. And then he's like, "Oh, yeah, I do." Like, things like that because he's a kid.
Yeah.
So knowing your child also is important. My other one knows very much, "Can you pick me up?" Things like that. So I think you have to parent your child just like we have agents. If you're a team lead, the agent that's like RSVPing and everything and showing up, and the agent,
Yeah.
you're like, "Hey, reminder, reminder." So I think it's just meeting people where they are. But I do leave the oh my gosh moments in my calendar. I try to buffer travel times. I try to buffer 15-minute, 20-minute here blocks because our life is so fluid sometimes. And I think that's really important. And that's something I learned really early on too. So if I have a lot of meetings, I try to take 30 minutes. I don't try to do back to backs where
Back to back to back to back to back. Yeah.
no, because if you go to a doctor's office that does that, have you noticed if you're the last appointment of the day, you are like an hour behind?
Yeah.
It is what it is.
I'm the one, I don't know if you're like this, but for at the doctor, I always try to get as early of an appointment as
Yes.
possible. Just because like I like getting like all of my stuff done as early in the day as I can. And then like the
Yes.
afternoons are more free for appointments
Yes.
and different stuff like that. But yeah, I'm like, if you're coming in after lunch, you're screwed. Like, unless you're the first one back from lunch,
That's what
like,
I do. I take the
yeah,
first one out. I ask the lady usually typically for the first appointment after lunch or the first appointment of the morning.
yeah,
So that's it. And if it's not one of those 2, then I make sure to block time, bookend times because I know it's gonna be bad. So I just take paperwork with me or my computer with
yeah,
me, or
yeah,
let
yeah,
I
yeah,
know that that's gonna be an issue. Another thing that I like to look at doing is, like, hair appointments. I go like, it's like holy grail for me. Some people like nails in hair. So for me, I know I gotta block like a huge chunk of time for that. So I take my computer and I'm like, I'm gonna get all this stuff done when I'm sitting in my
yeah.
appointment. So stuff like that, I think it kind of like you can do the things you need to do, but also get work done. So I think that's something that women are really good at doing. And some men, not all of the men.
The
My
multitasking.
husband is not. He's a one at a time kind of guy. But I think that's really good though, because I think it helps you focus. So I think
Yeah,
I do use a lot of the putting things on silent, like our time here right now, everything's on silent. So things aren't going to be dinging and distracting me.
yeah.
I noticed as human beings, if you start stopping, I call it switch tasking. If you're switch tasking too much,
Moving around, yeah,
you can't remember what you just worked on, and that takes you 10 times longer to do something than just to focus on the one. So I think proper blocking too, like if you're trying to do like, I don't know, blocking a marketing plan or blocking something new you're learning or planning some presentation, don't give yourself 30 minutes. Like we're we I don't think we're giving us enough time to
yeah.
block these projects. So I think that's the biggest piece too.
Well, and I think too, like you also don't want to you don't want to block too much time, right?
No,
Like you see people that are like, "Oh, I'm going to do 4 hours for my marketing plan." It's like you're not going to
no
sit there for 4 hours and like so do, little pieces, take
hour.
a break, go do something else
Yes.
kind of thing, right? Cuz like,
Yes.
our attention span, especially these days, isn't that long. Like despite what you may think, despite who you may think you are. But yeah, the switching of tasks or switch task or whatever, like I think that that's something that's huge. Because I mean, all of us think that we're great at multitasking. Oh yeah, I'm fabulous at it. But it's like the truth of the matter is like you're not giving 100%. So like sitting in a waiting room doing paperwork's a lot different than like doing paperwork and also trying to prospect and also posting on social media and
Yeah.
also and also and also. So
Yeah.
um yeah, I think that there are some really good takeaways there, especially you know planning out the buffer time too, because most people don't do that.
No, and then you're like, "Oh my god, I didn't plan 30 minutes." See how long it's gonna take you to go somewhere. Like, I
Yeah,
don't
for sure.
when you're booking the appointment, that's the really if you're going 40 mi and I'm really good, like, I live in an area that happens to be not that much of a commute, so I had a conversation with someone that lives in Georgia, it's an hour to everything, and I'm like, "That sounds horrible." Like, I would not even wanna
Yeah.
work there, like, so it's different for different people, I think, too, so you just have to know where you're working in your market and be able to plan around that too, but
Pl-
yeah, you just gotta
Planning
block it out. Planning is
planning
everything.
Well, and planning tours, I always say, is
Yeah,
like a freaking art form. Like
yeah,
once you've been in real estate long enough, like, and anyone that's like a veteran realtor on this listening to this podcast right now is like nodding their heads, right? Like planning out tours is an art form of like, okay, these people take 15 minutes per home, so we're gonna stack them this way, and then there's traffic here,
yeah.
and But anyways,
You
all
have
right,
to know how to rush people out if they need to, because sometimes inevitably you'll give them 15 minutes and that's the one they wanna sit in an hour. And
yeah.
you're like,
Oh
"Jesus
God, that
Christ."
sounds terrible.
Or they're like 1 minute in one house, like, "We're done," and you're too early for the next.
Yeah,
There's a lot
it's
of that too. So, I'm very honest. I'm like, "Listen, I can't read your brains. I don't know how long it's gonna take you, so this is how long we have for each house. So if you have a break, then go get a coffee and we'll meet you at the next one."
hey,
Like,
I
so
think
you don't
that's
kill
something
yourself,
a
like,
good veteran tip.
Yeah.
Like, I like
Go
it.
have a snack. I don't know. Go get
Yeah,
a snack. Go decompress. I don't put people in my car. It's a liability for me. I need a break from them. I need to think, let them think, and I'll see
yeah,
you at the next one. And I think that's another piece. You can make your phone calls then, you can follow up then.
yeah.
Um,
Instead of awkwardly sitting in front of the next house staring at them in their car.
while you're waiting for the next person, you're like,
Yeah,
"That's 20 minutes I could have used to go pee." I don't
for
know.
sure. Yeah, definitely. All right. So time management, add the buffer time in your schedule, snack time, pee time.
Yeah.
Great tips there. So, you got into real estate 2014 and you got your broker's license in 2018, but when did you start your team?
I started my team at the very beginning of 2017, like
Okay.
January 2017, and it is the craziest story.
All right, let's hear it.
So I came up with this brilliant idea after being an agent 2 years. I'm ready. I got to be a team. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I leveled up to elite. I went to my first elite retreat. That's where I met Lisa Trinati. I didn't know anybody. And I was like, I'm, going into 2017, this is my year. I'm going to do this. I had a great 2016. I went to the very first wire ever. And I just felt like I was ready.
Okay.
And then I found out I was pregnant as soon as I did all the paperwork to start my team. And then I was like, what have I done? So I formulated this team and I called it Alicia and Company because my last name is Soekawa and it's a lot for people in Richmond, Virginia. It's a lot. It's a lot. And so I just thought, let me just make it simple for people. And so that's where that came from. And I was with a company called Long and Foster, which is part of Home Services. It's more on the East Coast. And it was bought out. And it's one of those things where I didn't anticipate to have a baby in the business. And so I didn't know what that meant. And I kind of felt like I couldn't share it with people because I didn't want people to not work with me or not join my team. And then I hired this assistant that didn't work out. I mean, I did all of the wrong things. So the team, yes, I started the team. I grew, but I messed up the whole way, the entire whole way, like messed up bad. Like I hired an agent and he did pretty well. And then I hired another agent and she quit while I was on maternity leave. That was bad. And then like, I'm just going to have one agent. And it was just like the two of, it just is like
Yeah.
this whole evolving blow up, put together, blow up, put together. And that's kind of went on for a while and then I got my broker's license because I was like, I figure I should be a broker if I'm going to be telling people how to do stuff. But it,
So distilling down, like what advice would you give to someone if I'm a solo agent now and I'm starting to get to the point where like I've got too much business, things are falling through the cracks? What would you like put your coach hat on and your team leader hat on? Like what would you tell me like, well, don't do this or avoid this kind of thing? What are some of the biggest mistakes you see people make when they start a team?
The biggest mistake I made is not knowing what I wanted to build.
Okay. So getting clear on what the end goal is or what the vision is, right?
And I don't even think it's the end goal. I think it is, what do you want your life to look like?
Yeah.
So like that, it's like, when people have this end goal of like, I want 3 offices and and that's like a finite number. Like,
Yeah.
it's this number and a lot of achievers, I'm sure you understand, like you have this goal. I'm going to do this race, or I'm going to be number 1. Like they have these goals and it's a very driver, achiever, typical team lead mentality.
Yeah.
But instead, what I realized, and this is something that's been a revelation for me recently, is that you have to think about what is it that you really want from that? Because if you want, like, what I really want is freedom. What I really, really want is freedom of time, right? Freedom of time, freedom of money, freedom to do what I want with my friends and family and to live the life. Like, why else are you doing all of this? Like, really? Like,
Yeah.
and ultimately freedom to contribute, right, and be significant and help others. Like, that's the ultimate goal, right? So I think if that means I have 100 agents, if that means I have 25 agents and a couple of ancillaries, that's great. But I think that when you pigeonhole yourself into it has to look this way, or, oh, no, that's too much work. I don't want to be babysitting people. I think then you're realizing that the how is kind of keeping you blocked from what you really want. So I think being truly honest with yourself and your partner, what do you want and why do you want it? Most people don't want to admit it.
Well, and so let's dig into that a little bit more. I
Yeah.
know that you guys work together.
Yes. Just like
So
you do.
yeah, right. So I'm really just here for a counseling session. No, I'm kidding.
Yes. Yes.
So how long were you in real estate before your husband joined you?
Well, he has been on the payroll and kind of been the behind the scenes, like, let me help you. He's very high S, which will
Okay.
explain. So he's a real person that's like,
So he
if I was
cares about people.
yes.
Yeah,
So
I
if I
don't.
call him and I'm like, shit, I need help. And he'll like drop everything and come help me. Like,
Okay.
putting up sign, whatever it is, he'll show up
Yeah.
at the open house. He would be at open houses so I wouldn't get stabbed, stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
and I was pregnant. I mean, all the things he helped me mulch. I mean, he painted a deck once because of some drama. That's another story. But like, he was that person that came and rescued everything. Let's put it that
Yeah.
way. So he was paid on the payroll. but he wasn't a formal person doing the business with me as a partner until until we opened the brokerage, probably last year. So it's been
Okay.
like a little over a year. He actually, when I leveled up to team coaching is when he came in as a partner officially, and he started taking on the role and wearing the hat of operations. So it's been a really challenging, I guess, and defining time in our marriage. We've been together now 27 years. So it's
Well,
a
and
long
so
time.
yeah, I mean, you guys were together for a long time, and then he was just helping you out because, like, that's what
Yeah.
spouses do.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
now he's here, and that's
Yeah.
I was more curious about it because, like, I feel like, I'd met you and I clearly knew you were married with children and
Yes.
whatever, but I'd never met Michael, and then, like, he started showing up at events, and I was like, "What, did he just join real estate, or, like, did he just, like,"
Yeah.
so that
You're
was
scared.
curious on my part, right?
No,
And
and I
so
think yeah, he felt kind of weird, I think, at first because he's like, "This is your company." I was like, "Okay." Like, that's literally I was like, "Whatever." Like, like, I had a girlfriend, like, the loan was in her name at the house. He says, "Your house." I guess I'm living in your house. I'm like, "No, we're building this together," the last time I checked.
yeah,
But he is not licensed,
okay,
and that is by design because I just don't think it's necessary, and it's like, when you get licensed and you start putting your head in things you don't need to put it in? He's
yeah,
over here. Like, it's
yeah,
better that way. Um, and it has been really good and bad. He sheds light to things that I don't wanna see, but because I'm married to him, I have to see it. Does that make sense? Like, he can say things to me
yeah,
other people can't say.
yeah,
But at the same time, he has to come home with me at the end of the day. So I think it's a very fine dance, and I think he even made a comment. He's like, "If you were not the person you were today, we would not be able to work together." So I will pat myself on the back and say I've
for
grown a
your
lot.
personal growth.
Yes, and my personal growth journey, which I have actively been on the mission of growing, as a leader and just as a human in the last few years, for sure.
Well, and so outside of just like, I, I want to put a pin in that one, but
Yeah.
outside of like, since he's not licensed, you clearly have separate roles. Do you think that that's your biggest piece of advice is just like to have the clear roles, or like why do you think it's successful other than your personal, development journey as well?
I think you have to allow someone the space to grow and do what they need to do and give
Hmm.
them autonomy
Yeah.
so I think that's the biggest thing is give him, like, whatever you say, and not be like, "No, I don't agree with that." And that's hard. I mean, you understand that. It's so hard. I don't know if it's just being Korean or what, but I'm just like, "No, that's wrong."
That's
I
funny.
mean, he used to call me Mrs. No-Nos. That was my nickname. So, like, "Nope, nope." Everything's like, "Nope."
Yeah.
But he's someone that I think we actually implemented EOS, which I know you know that from Traction, in our business this year at December, and we formally integrated in December, January time period, and that has been a game changer for us. So I am clearly the visionary, and he's clearly an integrator. But
Yeah.
he actually, when he tested, he can be both. He's one of those freaky weirdos that can be both. So we
Just
actually have
can
a
do anything. He can just do it all.
weirdo. Like, so we have a tripod. So we have Paul, who's really an integrator as well. So we have like a tripod leadership, and he's one of our leadership people at the office.
Okay.
And so that having that extra person has been good for us too.
Yeah.
And he's a guy's guy. So it's perfect for Michael because I am not. Like, they talk about sports and all that stuff. But I think it's the space that I can go, like, I don't want to know. Like, I don't wanna know. Like,
Yeah.
I really don't wanna know anymore. But early on, I was all up in that shit. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, I didn't mean to curse. I
Yeah.
was all up in there, like, bad. But Emily, our coach, was like, "You need to
Oh, and Emily's a hard ass, so,
She called me out. She really
yeah,
called me out, and I'm the reason why she's good for me coaching-wise is because, I think she allows me to she's okay with holding the mirror up to me, and I'm not resentful for that. Because I think some coaching clients, and as being a coach, they say they want to hear, but they don't really wanna hear,
yeah.
and they're not
Well,
gonna
it's
be.
hard. It's hard hearing, negative things or things that you need to improve on or things that, like, deep down but you don't wanna hear. It's difficult. No one likes being called out. I mean,
Yes, but I
people
think
receive it differently than others, right? But it still hurts a
yeah,
little or it still,
yeah,
hits you.
yeah, it does, and I think it's because you deep down and a lot of it's just the insecurity of "Oh, no, I knew that, and I just was hoping that no one would notice," kinda thing.
Yeah.
And you're like, "Oh, no, I did it again."
So, how long have you been a coach?
Since 2020. So, I was the last coaching class to go
Before
through
the world shut down?
before the world shut down. I was
Yeah,
actually in we had that elite retreat in, San Diego, and I flew back to California for like, original it was, like, the last time they did that whole training in-house, and, like,
yeah,
it was, like, 35 people, and then they narrowed it down, and we had, like, 12 weeks of classes, and they were picking people, and then they paused, and then they brought us in, so it was
yeah.
2020. Yeah, it's crazy.
That's awesome. What do you think is the most difficult thing for people that are being coached? Like, we just mentioned that, like, receiving feedback that you don't necessarily want to hear is tough, right? But
Yeah.
what gets in the way for most people in their coaching
Themselves.
journey? Themselves?
Mhm. So, I would say that broadly, I would say there's couple different respects of that. I think they are holding themselves back, number 1, because I think they're fearing the jump it's gonna take to go to the next level for
Yeah,
themselves. That's 1. 2nd is they're really comfortable. They're making money. I'm closing deals, I'm making money, I'm consistent, I'm able to go on my vacations,
yeah,
everything's good, like, why would I change anything? But they're not happy. Like, they're just again, it's themselves. Like, they're not able to because of the fear of the change, I don't want to change. And then not making decisions too, again,
yeah,
themselves,
yeah,
not committing to the decision that they're gonna make to do it. And then once you make that decision, you have to let go of your past self. That's really hard. Like, it's really, really, really hard. So, like, the concept of you're not in production, are you?
I still am, yeah,
A little bit. So when the for the people that are out of production, when you ask them what it was like to go from being in production to out of production, it was huge pain point because you
yeah,
lose money, you go negative, but
yeah, for
but
sure.
that's what allowed the biggest jump for most people. But are you willing to lose what's lucrative in order to scale you to the next level? That's the hardest part, I think.
Well, and I think, um, yeah, I mean, there's just so many different, like, seasons of life and in business, right? And
Yes.
that's, I don't know, being out of production was a goal for a while. I mean, and I'm not gonna sell a ton of homes this year, but, I mean, I'm
Mhm.
still going on listing appointments. I was like,
Yeah.
well, before we started the podcast, I was like, "Oh, give me a second." I was responding to someone about, like, them doing updates to their property before putting it on the market. Um, but, like, yeah, I mean, it's something that I think is now is important to me to, like, keep a pulse on the market, and keep a pulse
Absolutely.
of, like, how things work and stuff like that.
I think the question you have to ask yourself is if you wanna be out of production just because you don't wanna be in production, then that's okay. Because some people just don't wanna do it anymore,
Yeah,
right? But if you wanna be in production, then that's great too. But I think ultimately you have to figure out what is it that you want, and that's the biggest thing is if you feel exhausted because 'cause you're trying to run the team and do this and do that, and then you're running and showing buyers and,
yeah,
listing houses, then what do you really want? Does that make sense? Like, I
yeah,
don't see myself 100% getting out of production because I enjoy it. Like, I
yeah,
like working with my friends. Like,
yeah.
that to me is joyful. But do I wanna sell 100 houses a year? No.
Well, and that's, like, the point to where I'm at now, right? It's,
Yeah.
like, between the team and, like,
Yeah.
the different, like, speaking and, like, just different things that I have going on now, like, I just don't have enough time to sell 100 homes a year, you know? Um, you mentioned earlier, and I think as we're talking about, like, different stages of career and stage of life, you mentioned earlier personal development. Right?
Yes.
And so, I do think that it's something that needs to be a concerted effort, right? Of hey, I need to do this, watch this, grow this way, challenge myself this way, whatever it may be, right? Um, what are some books that you are either have read or are reading, but like what are some books that you would recommend to people to read on the personal development front, right?
I think anything by Tony Robbins, so it's separate of business,
Yeah.
right? I think business is mixed in, but Tony Robbins is, I would say, the OG. He trained under Jim Rohn. Um, I think that he is someone that's living, like, some of the people are not here anymore, so that's why, like, he's
Yeah.
relatable in that way. And I think just like being open-minded when you're reading these books. I think it's really easy to read the books and be like, ah, stupid. I'm not doing
Yeah.
it. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Like
No, it's
that's hokey. I'm not doing that. Like,
no, it's Phil Gertis, right?
yes, yes.
So he has a mindset talk that
Mhm.
he's been going over, and like his one thing is like, or not his one thing, but one of his things in this talk is like basically like, if you're here, you need to be open minded to this event and to this day, right?
Yes.
And you need to be here and be ready to take in and maybe not take in everything, but like be open to new ideas. But there's going to be the guy in the corner when I say raise your hand if you have hands, and he's gonna be like, I'm not raising my hand, and that's exactly what you're describing, right? That people are like, oh, this is hokey and I'm not going to listen to it, right? Like there does need to be some open-mindedness when, embarking on a personal development journey for sure.
I
100%.
think, there's that concept when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Yeah.
So, I think everybody has a different level of being okay at I know a lot of people like Jen Sincero's book, like, You're a Badass, it's a real popular one, but I'm like,
It is.
"Yeah, it's okay." I mean, it's a great book, I'm not
Yeah.
knocking it all, but I think there's deeper books, like, I think for women, um, anything by Brené Brown is
Yep.
just very powerful and it addresses things that I think we need to address as women. Just with the different hats that we wear, just to kind of dig deeper into yourself. I actually started this, was part of this whole book club that read The Laws of Success by Napoleon Hill. And
Okay.
it's the original, like, it's the one that Think and Grow Rich is based off of. So,
Okay.
like, Think and Grow Rich would be the cliff notes to this book because it's like over 600
Oh
pages.
God. Okay.
It looks like a college textbook, and it
Yeah.
reads like old
You have to
English.
carry it around with both
It
arms.
does, and it looks like old English. Like, it's
Oh God. Okay.
fascinating. It's so good, though, but you really do need to read it with a group of people because it's really very interesting. But I think, again, like, that's you have to be ready for that. Like, you
Yeah.
want an easier read book with bullet points and things like that. You gotta know who you are. The Big Leap is one that I think every book that has come across my path, I read about 4 books a month. So I'm a really
Do you
fast
read them all at the same time?
I do. I
Okay.
do
Because I
read
was
them.
like, there's okay.
I read 2 books probably at the same time, and then I'll
Okay.
reread books. Right now I'm on like, personal journey and spiritual journey tend to kinda coincide.
Yeah.
For me, the personal journey has led to a spiritual journey, not meaning
Okay.
to, in a
Yeah.
really weird way. Um, and I am a Christian. I'm a proud Christian to say that. So this has nothing to do with like being like a religion, but there is a
Yeah.
belief of, there is yourself and the spirit or whatever inside of you or whatever Shaki, whatever you want to call it, right? So I fell into like Michael Singer and the Untethered Soul and Living Untethered, which has been a huge game changer for me. And I showed you that book, Joe Dispenza, and he's got a ton of podcasts. And I think that guy, Lewis Howell, who does like the School of Greatness podcast, he had him on a couple of his podcasts.
Okay.
So this really talks about energy and about how, like, a lot of this stuff we do to ourselves and we don't even realize we're doing it. So he
Yeah.
talks about like when you're anxious and stressed, and as a mother, you'll understand this and you're like all revved up, that you're basically what you're doing is you're in your body, you're pushing the gas pedal at the same time as you're pushing your brake.
Yeah.
And that's
And
what
that's
you're
not
doing with
good.
your body, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
No, there's nothing being made from that. So it's just about letting go and relaxing. So I'm a really type A driver, intense, like high emotional person.
Really? I
Yeah,
never would have guessed.
you never to get that. Oh, I'm all over the
Never
place.
would have
So
guessed.
this has been really good. I meditate every morning now, and I do a lot of things differently, and it has really been a game changer for me to the point where I'm just like, okay, I can feel the physical changes, and it took a while. It took about a month for it to happen. So that's something I would recommend. So like if you are really searching for that inner something's missing, it's all within yourself is what I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. Meditation is something that I recommend to people all the time because like I don't know if you have this too, but like sometimes when I go to lay down at the end of the day, my
Mhm,
head is still just like
mhm,
everything's just moving, and I'm like, oh, did this happen? Did that happen? Oh, I've got this podcast tomorrow. I've got this, got that. And it's just
mhm.
like I can't make it stop. And meditation is the one thing that if I truly like focus in on it, I can actually like, you
Yes,
know, remove the noise and fall asleep. And,
yes.
and that's normally what I recommend to people. But like what you just said, like you've really like gotta like 100% be all in. And I feel like most people aren't when they do meditation.
I think meditation is something that people are trying to perfect. like everything else, the high achiever's disease of I have to do it perfect, and if I have
Yeah.
a thought, then I didn't do meditation right, so I can't do this.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of judgment that we place on ourselves and that we allow to be placed on ourselves, like with competition or whatever you wanna have, like keeping up with people, and I think that is something that you have to start peeling away.
Yeah.
That's the biggest takeaway, I think, is there isn't any kind of timeline.
There's there is a one of the meditations I listen to, it like tells you like, hey, if you let your mind slip from this and, whatever, that's fine. Just come back to center, come back to what you're doing. And like that's me. I'm like squirrel. Oh wait, no, I'm
Yes.
meditating. Let's do
Yeah.
that. So it's
Well,
a
Michael Singer
journey.
talks about that's just your mind, and your mind is your true self is watching your mind. So thoughts will continually come, and if you're noticing your mind.
Yeah. 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 Uh,
It's very interesting if you think about it.
no, it's very I'm not like I'm not that big of like the I don't want to say mental, but like I definitely believe that like, your mind controls the things and your mindset's super important, but I'm very like black and white when it comes to life. But yeah, the meditation and like affirmations and stuff have like been interesting for me. So yeah. Anyways, all good.
You need to listen to Joe.
Okay.
Joe is a science-based
Send
person.
it over, and I'll
I
give it a
really feel
whirl.
like he
But
will answer a thing, and you'll be like, because if you're very concrete, black and white, it will satisfy
yeah.
for you, and you'll be like, "Oh."
No,
Oh, the book I am reading now, and I'm halfway through, is this one.
10x is easier than 2x. Dan Sullivan.
Yes, so he also
How
wrote
world-class
Who
entrepreneurs achieve. Oh, okay, I like this. Achieve more by doing less.
and he wrote Who Not How, and he
You
also
know,
wrote The Gap in the Gain.
Who Not How, I tried to buy on, or I didn't try. I bought it on Audible and I tried to listen to it, and it was very Cat in the Hat, Dr. Seuss-esque, because like Who Not How, both of those words kind of sound the same. And I listened to my Audibles at like 1.5 or faster, and it was just chaos. I was
No,
like, I was so
this
confused.
is a reading book.
Yeah,
They're both reading these are
yeah,
reading books.
okay. Yes,
Because they give
professor.
you homework, and you have to write things down, you gotta think about
Yes,
them.
professor.
There's questions.
Okay. I feel like I'm in a coaching session right now. I don't
But
like
it's the
this.
truth.
I
It's
don't like this.
the truth. But it just makes you think, right? Because there's
Yeah.
certain things that you can listen to and absorb, and there are other things
Yeah.
that you need to read.
Who Not How is not one to listen to though, because I
No.
guess also you have homework. I didn't get far enough to get to the homework, but listening to it at 1.5 is just like chaos. It was just absolute chaos.
Yeah, because like, sometimes I think as we wanna try to absorb as much as we can at one time, that's another
Yeah.
achiever's, um, problem. You should slow down.
I feel like we're just unpacking all of my flaws here, Alicia. So this has been fun. Just I just have all of these notes like meditate more,
Well, I
do your
think what happened is, like, I
affirmations,
think, like you
slow
said,
down.
the seasons
Yeah.
really triggered me when you said that, because I think for me, I'm in a different season now. So you have to remember I have a one that's gonna be a rising senior, and I have a rising kindergartner, and I also have a I know, it's craziness. And I have, a business that just turned a year old, and I'm doing different things, and I'm all of a sudden realizing like, "Wait a second. This is like, what is it that I really want now going forward?"
Yeah.
Right? So it's like this second I think Mel Robbins did something. I saw her do a TikTok on this, it was fascinating. She goes, "What does your second season look like?" So, like, you're in a second season because you just had a baby who's getting ready to go into, like, the crawling and all that stuff at some point.
I like her now, she's not mobile, it's great.
Yeah, it changes, and, like, it
Yeah,
will evolve and change, and I think that's the cool part about being a parent, for those of you that are parents, is that because you get to watch through the lens of your child, it makes you kinda reevaluate the things for yourself, separate
yeah.
of being a parent, right? Because it's like, "Oh, that's interesting. I remember when I was that age. I wonder what I was doing when I was that age. I wonder if I'd had given the opportunity at this age," because you can see things so clearly. So it's like I call it the Google Maps view. We
Yeah.
have the Google Maps view, um, for our children and for our agents as a team lead, for all those things, but when we're doing it ourselves, we're at street level.
Yeah.
So we have
Yeah.
to trust that that's where it comes, that what you were saying, like, I think the biggest thing, if I wish I had known now when I started the team, I really wish I'd had a better idea of what it is that I wanted. 'Cause
Yeah.
I think I started a team because I thought I had to. You see? I
Yeah.
started a team because everybody else started a team. So I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, I guess I'll start a team because everyone says you're supposed to start a team,"
That's what you
without
do now.
asking.
Once you've sold this many homes, now you start a
Now
team.
you get this, and now you get this, and now you check this off, and I'm like, "Okay, cool. Now what do I do?" Like, I didn't ever question, "Well, why?
Yeah.
What is it you're trying to do?" So it became about me instead of about the agents.
Well, and one thing that I've been kind of talking about, like, when I talk about teams and team building is I'm like, there's 2 things, like, 1, you may not like, not everyone needs to have a team, right? And 2, figuring out what you want. So those are both very important. I also think that, like, people, as far as teams go, people wanna do it in a certain way, and, like, they can look different, and that's fine.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, the business can be look different probably 1,000 different ways,
yeah, for
at
sure.
least. But I think one of the biggest, um, issues that people have when you're a top producer, being a top producer does not mean you are a leader.
Yeah.
They do not. They don't work together. Like, to be a top producer and to do those things, you're doing it. You're to be the leader and lead people and coach people and help people and lift them up and guide them and be there for them. That's a complete different skill set. That is, I think, the biggest disconnect that I see when people go from being a top producer to being a team lead. And what happens is they get one agent that doesn't listen to them and do all the things they wanted them to do, and they go, "Well, this is stupid. I'm out. I'm gonna go sell some houses because I can do better. I can do more." That's honestly what I hear in every
Yeah.
coaching. They didn't listen to me. I'm gonna go do this now, and I'm done. I'm done with being a team. So I think you have to remember that no one's born a leader. That's a bunch of crap. It's just no way. You're not born that way. You have to work on it. You have to get better at it. You have to mess up. I mean, I really messed up bad the other week. And so my coach called me out on that too. That's my fault.
Yeah.
And I owned up to it and I apologized,
Yeah.
and it's something that I am really working on actively. And I think we have to remember, if we are that person and we say, "I want that," and raise our hands, then that comes with the ownership of, you have these people that are relying on you to take care of them. And I think we have to get out of that selfish me mode, I want my name in the lights. I want to be the one.
Yeah.
That's really hard for people.
Yeah.
So hard. That's the biggest battle every
For
week,
sure.
to be honest with you.
Alright. Well, we've unpacked a lot today. Half of this podcast, I feel like, was a personal, coaching session, but, I'm gonna hit you with one last question that I think I may know the answer to, but I'm gonna
Okay.
ask it for the people out there in the world that probably don't know the answer. But, Alicia, if it was your last meal on earth, what would you be eating?
Oh, probably toss-up bibimbap.
So, for those out there
Cream
that may
food.
not know what that is, but,
It would have to be Korean food
yeah,
because I don't get to eat that much. So delicious. Or bulgogi, one of the 2. But that's in the toss-up bibimbap, so I can get the best of both worlds.
I love it. I love
I
it.
love to eat, so
I you know, it's some of my favorite activities to do as well. For people that may not follow you, where is the best place for them to find you?
Oh, I'm on all the things. I don't do the Twitter. That thing annoys me. I'm probably the only person. It's too many words. But, and Instagram, it's on here at alicia.rva. So RVA is really short for Richmond, Virginia. So that's where that
Awesome.
comes from. And then Alicia RVA, I'm on TikTok, and then I'm on Facebook, just my name. I'm around. You can find
Awesome.
me and
Perfect.
all the things.
Well, if you need anything in Richmond, Virginia, or just need
Yeah.
a intense coaching session like I feel like I just had, hit up Alicia and connect with her on Instagram, alicia.rva. Alicia, thank you so much for your time
You're
today. I'm looking
welcome.
forward to seeing you hopefully sometime soon.
I will
And
be at Phil Jones. Oh.
and I'll see you soon.
I'll be at team leadership in October.